Howdy of you delicious people, I'm here today to review The Pianist. So, the one thing that I immediately want to say when I go into a movie like this, because I understand the real significance of this story, of course, seeing stuff before, kind of like Schindler's List, and going on and seeing certain kind of films that are to really be just these heartbreaking kind of stories. And I want people to completely understand like the way of which that I'm going on and doing this review, this movie is just kind of like I'm trying to do it as if it's any other film, and understanding also that this is possibly based on a true story also. Like, again, it's like really hard for me to want to like critique this film for honestly like how hard of a story that this really is. So, and I hope people can understand that if my opinion is to be one way on the fence or another, like I hope people can be like, well, I'm sorry if this movie isn't to be up to your standards or up to your fancy or up to like this is a very hard hitting movie, and like I completely understand that. So, The Pianist. How do I feel about this film? And so, I have to go on and say that there's a lot of like, wow, like, oh my god kind of moments. There's some very, like, hard hitting moments that you're just like, wow, this movie is brutal. And you're just like, you're really just watching characters just starve to death. And that's just like a horrific scene where they're just kind of like carving up these caramels into like little tiny pieces, and then like, and that's like their dinner for like the whole entire day is this like tiny chunk of caramel that's like yay big. And they're gonna have to even break that up into little tiny pieces. So, like, and people are like licking their fingers just to get that last bit of caramel taste. Uh, and I'm just like, man, this movie. You really respect Adrian Brody and a number of other people that just kind of had to like starve themselves possibly through this film to really just look as thin as they possibly can, because this is like a long stretch of movie where of course you have these characters that really are just starving themselves because there is not really any much of any food. And so I thought that there was something about this that was so like fascinating and brutal. And then I went on and like really towards the end, in all honesty, like I kind of wished towards the end, because I have this through every film. Like, really, if you're having a very long movie, things should actually pick up during the end and not slow down. And that's what kind of happens with this movie. And I'm just like, man, like towards the end of this film, it just gets boring. I'm just being honest. It's just like that's what I feel. It just gets boring towards the end, and I can't pretend that like I can't pretend that there's a lot going on. It just feels like I'm like, come on, like let's go. Like this is like the ninth hour of this. Like come on, like let's pick up. Um, because I just really wanted there like I just really wanted like an escalation instead of a de-escalation of things. And I get it that like, well, I'm sorry, like this true event like didn't have enough of exciting I'm just being honest. I'm just being forthcoming. um so with that said, where can you go to see this film? Where there's like, it's another one of those kind of tons of apps would go on and conveniently help you go on and find this. I would recommend because considering this app technically has subtitles, like there is some German speaking parts in this film. Even though I have a ton of apps that I would normally recommend people, I would mention one app specifically. So on the Google Play Store, I would have you search the word TV Crush. Uh, an app called TV Crush will not appear right away. It'll be another app that is to be called like HD Movies 123, and it has like an HD with like HD movies with a crown on it. I would have you go on and download that app. Once you download that app, search the word for this movie, and you'll be able to actually watch this film via subtitles on the bottom. So when there's ever going to be a time when there's going to be a subtitle piece, you can actually read it in whatever your preferred language is that is hopefully upon that app. And if you have any problems trying to go on and trying to like figure out how to like maneuver through that app, then let me know. Um, but yeah, so you'll be able to watch this movie with English subtitles, so you can be able to clearly see what they're saying and what's going on here. Specifically during the like, you could probably go on and watch this anywhere and probably not need the subtitles, and you'd probably be fine. With the exclusion of some kind of stretching of talking at some points. But like I feel like you could probably get the gist of what's going on without the subtitles. But I would just recommend that app so you can conveniently have both subtitles and whatever. So with that said, that's just how I felt about The Pianist. Like I would say that like this movie was so interesting to me. It was so like it was a fascinating story of just desperation and just trying to figure out what is the one way to save themselves from certain death. And it seems the further and further we go on to this story, it seems that seems to be more and more bleak. And really, maybe a quick death in this story is to just kind of save yourself from slowly, surely uh, dying in a very slow manner to the point of you like basically starving yourself to death or just eventually going on and just finding anything that seems like food for you to just be able to eat it. And that just gets to some levels, let's just say. Creative levels. So, but yeah, so this is like another like I don't want to use the word like Holocaust story, but that's pretty much what it is. And but it's an interesting story how we kind of have Adrian Brody's character, who is Vladislav Slipman. Slipman. I'm probably going to be butchering names in this, even if I can't actually remember certain names in this film, because there's a lot of people that are involved in this film. So more than likely, I'll have to maneuver and figure out ways to just be able to carve through some of this story without actually going on and saying like certain people's names at certain points. Because heaven forbid, there's a big, massive cast that kind of goes in here. So with that, and plus also there's just a lot of names that are severely hard to pronounce, and I'm going to butcher every single one of them because that's what happens when you watch a film. So, Wadislaw. Wadislaw is to, of course, be Adrian Brody's character, or Slipman. Szpilman. Slipman. Might just go on and say Adrian Brody for this one. Just, I'm going to be butchering people's names left and right. So with that said, I think it's time for us to just go into spoilers. Let's try to do the best that we can. Hopefully you understand that it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you get to spoil this movie. So in the very beginning of the film, we of course have it be that all of a sudden Slipman is going on and playing the piano in the very beginning of this film. All of a sudden, bombs are being dropped upon this environment, and so we, of course, have this Polish radio station who's kind of cutting Adrian Brody Adrian Brody's character off here to just tell him, hey, like we can't use this anyways, all the explosions. So they go on and they have to leave this Polish radio station because bombs are going off. And so we all of a sudden have, of course, uh, Władysław, who is bumping into a girl named Dorota. And it's just, that's the names of these stories. And so immediately we have it with both these characters, like it's like almost love at first sight, because Dorota is to say she is to love Adrian Brody's character's work. And so we of course find out that Dorota is to be some celloist, and that it seems that of course Dorota is a big fan of, I think, Chopin's. So we go on into this story, and so we have Władysław go home to find out that it seems that his family is trying to figure out like what they're going to do with their money. And so we have this family that's kind of scrambling to think, like, okay, where can we hide our money? Like we have one guy who's saying, like, well, hey, how about we just hide our money, like right out in the open, just toss a thing of paper on it, and no one will know. And so it's like, because these people are gonna have to like clean their whole like thing of money out of their banks, so that way they can go on, and because they're gonna have to go, and like no banks will accept their money because of who they are. And so we now go on and have Władysław that is to go and figure out, it's like, well, hey, how about we just put all our money into this violin, just kind of squeeze the dollars one by one into this violin. And they're like, well, yeah, but how are we going to get it out? And then it's just like, oh my god, like this story is already getting off to like a crazy start with these characters, because they're needing to desperately figure out like where are they going to hide their money. Like we had the one girl who was thinking that, like, hey, how about we put this money like in these plants? We'll just kind of put it in plants and we'll just kind of walk with the plants and no one will know. So we go on further into this story, and so Władysław is going and spending some time with Dorota, because Władysław is calling this man. Is like, hey, like, I'm not here to talk about my future career. I just want to ask about this Dorota girl. So Władysław and Dorota are going on to just kind of hang out at this cafe. And so come to find out, we start to have it to where it seems that Władysław is not welcome in this cafe. Let's just say it, because he is Jewish. I want to be as polite as I can about this, because like, but it's like that's the reasoning for the story, where it seems that we have this character who is starting to get banned from certain locations within this area, to where Dorita is like, well, hey, how about we just go out in the park? And Władysław is like, well, can't go there either. I can't leave there either. I can't, like, maybe both of us can just like sit on a bench somewhere, and maybe I'll be banned from doing that also. So we realize that like this guy really wants to win over this girl, but like there's nothing he can do. So Władysław goes home, and so his family's to go on and read this newspaper, and so these people are to go on and find out that they're going to have to move soon to another location because of who they are. And so, and we start to have these people who are running out of money. So we have this family forcibly needing to sell this piano, and this guy who's trying to like buy this piano off these people is kind of ripping them off, and it's like, well, hey, like I'm not charging you guys like a pickup fee, like because I'm gonna have to find some people who are gonna have to go and get this out of here, and like you guys need to eat, right? So hey, like $2,000 for this. So that Wadishla is to just be kind of heartbroken that his one favorite thing, that of course to be playing the piano, is now technically taken from him because of what's going on. so so Wadishla is to try to continue to get work. And so he's working as this pianist at this diner. All of a sudden, for him to be interrupted because one person is telling him, like, hey, could you just kind of like stop playing for a little bit? Because these guys are weirdly playing this game where they're kind of tossing these coins around for whatever goofy reason. And so this guy is just like, hey, please, I'm just want to play, and like you can go back to playing. So we have these guys go on and bounce these coins around, I guess making sure that they're real, and then we have a Vadishla that goes on and plays. I'm hoping I'm saying that close to right because I'm going to just continue to saying it also. If I'm ill pronouncing it, I do apologize. It is not meant to be that way for me to have figured out a way to ill pronounce this name. Maybe it's probably Wadishla or Walatishla? Walatisha. Walatishla. Ill pronouncing. So, because Slipman could also be a thing that I could just keep saying. So, uh, we go on into this story, and so these guys get this newspaper telling them that they're gonna have to go and wear these armbands that have the Star of David on it, and we of course have kind of Adrian Brody's character's father who's like, well, where are we gonna get these? Like, where are we gonna get these armbands? And like, are we just gonna have to make these ourselves? So all of a sudden we have Wadi Shlah's father, who is to be like kind of walking on the sidewalk, and all of a sudden we have this German soldier that doesn't like that this guy's walking on the sidewalk, so he just starts kind of beating him and pushing him off to the gutter, where now this guy is just kind of walking home like right on the gutter of this sidewalk, so that way he can just go on and just make his way home. And I'm like, oh my god. So all of a sudden we have these guys like starting to scramble to just try and figure out like how exactly they're going to make it by here, and they're desperately trying to figure out like what kind of thing that they can do that could possibly save them. So we have Adrian Brody that is desperately going to this guy to get these work certificates, and hoping that these work certificates saying that they're working in this environment is possibly going to save them from certain death. But we really just turn around and have these work certificate people all pulled out of where they're sleeping in this little place to start to get picked and to start to get shot. I'm like, oh my god. So we start to have this one, like, we start to have these, like, big, massive, like, brick fences that are getting, or let's say correctly, brick walls that are being built. And so we just start to see these guys that are all forcibly, like, building these big, massive brick walls as if this is like the Berlin Wall situation all over again. And so we have it at one point where Adrian Brody's character is seeing a kid who is trying to squeak past this brick wall, and he ends up we have it to where Waldisla is going on and trying to pull this little kid out of this fence, and I think he's like getting beaten to death in between this fence. And so by the time that Adrian kind of pulls him out, this kid is dead. So we also had a moment where Waldishla's family is going on and is seeing a house nearby where all of a sudden all these men are getting pulled out of their home. And we have this one guy with this wheelchair, and they just take this guy in this wheelchair and push him off this back balcony and have him fall to his death. I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. And I'm like, man, this is insane. This is insane. And then all of a sudden the guys are like trying to run for their lives. And we have the Germans that are just kind of, these German soldiers that are just kind of shooting these guys down. And they're just kind of like flashing lights, just gun all these men down. I'm like, oh my god, this is wow. So yeah, there's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to run. All you have to do is just hide and just hope for the best at this freaking point. Good grief, this story. So we have this family that is to all have to be transferred to just be put onto this train. And so we had at one point where there was to be this Jewish man that was saying that they're going to be putting together some like police force, and he's kind of going on and asking a number of families, hey, do you want to be a part of this like Jewish like police force? And Adrian Brody's just like, no, I'm gonna go on and I'm just gonna find other work. And so all of a sudden later on in the film, where we just have people that are now like fighting over cans of food, and like one person has dropped this can of food and this guy's just like all on the ground, this food drops in the ground and this guy's like all on the ground. I'm like, oh my god. So we have Adrian's character that desperately is going to this man that he had seen before that's wearing like the Star of the David, and he's wearing this police hat. And so this guy is going on and telling him, it's like, well, hey, like, help me, I'll whatever you want, I'll do whatever you want. And the guy is like, well, that's gonna come at a cost now. Like you're gonna have to pay me to be part of this now. And so Wladisla is to just go on and say, it's like, well, hey, I have no money. I'm freaking broke. Like, all the money that I have is just going into food because, like, I'm sure food is getting way ridiculously expensive. And so we have these kids that are going on and giving these, like, these pieces of caramel to these people as they're just kind of all before they go on this train. They're just kind of all in this kind of one area that is just kind of walled off, and so all these kids with these caramel pieces are going on and giving them all these caramel pieces for like I guess like $20, I guess. And so like, man, all we really have is like $20, so I guess we're just gonna have to enjoy whatever this last bit of food is. So like they break the little caramel piece into a number of different pieces for everyone to eat. And so then they go off on this train, and we have this Jewish police officer that is grabbing Adrian Brody's character and pushing him off to the side, basically kind of telling him like, get out of here because like I'm saving your life. And so Adrian is just kind of like, he's running, and the guy's like, don't run, freaking walk somewhere. And so the guy's walking, and he's like, okay. So all of a sudden we have this guy who's kind of just having this wheelbarrow of the dead, and so Vadisla is like kind of going with him and like, okay, let's look like we're doing this together because freaking like, so like I can get out of here. So we go on, and we have this character that is eventually to be forced to build all these houses up. Like he's building all of these brick houses up, and like we have this guy that's taking this, like it looks like a bench, but they like customized it for him to just like be holding all these bricks in this like bench kind of like thing where he's kind of holding the leg of the bench against his back, and like the seat part is like behind him, and like the bricks are just kind of stacked up against there. And so Varisla is going on and trying to build these houses, and he's just getting exhausted, he's just getting tired. And so it gets to one point where he is to see an old friend of his, and so both of them are kind of just chatting it up after they're kind of done with their workday. And the guy is mentioning like, hey, I think we're going to have to go on and create some kind of resistance. It seems like we have quite a few strong men, and I think we're going to finally like figure out a way to resist against these people and try to take our place back, or we're going to die. Like we're going to die either way. So Varishla is saying like, "Hey, if you need help, I'm willing to help." So we go on. We have this guy who's continuing to uh, just kind of toss these bricks upon his back, and is trying to give these bricks to these people so they can continue to build these homes, and these like huge like apartment home buildings and whatever what have you. So we go on and have at one point where all of a sudden like this guy is seeing huge massive numbers of all these planes that are flying by. And so Adrian Brody's character is just kind of like, he's just kind of looking at that. All of a sudden all the bricks are to fall out of his like uh little seat backpack, and we all of a sudden have one officer who's like, hey, get over here. And so he just starts whipping the guy because he's like, hey, like, you freaking did something wrong because you weren't paying attention. Now you're going to get whipped. And so we have Arisla, who goes further, and he is to eventually go on and try to start uh, like hiding things for the resistance. He goes and he's like trying to hide these guns, like underneath all these kind of bags of wheat and stuff like that. And so all of a sudden, this one officer is telling this guy, it's like, what's in that bag? And the guy's like, well, hey, it's just wheat, and it's just food. And so the officer kind of pulls it out, and he doesn't like what he sees, and is like, you know what? If you lie to me again, I will kill you personally. And so we finally have just Vladislav that's like, dude, I am going to die soon. So he goes and talks to his friend, and he's like, dude, I need to figure out a way out of here. I think I'm going to die soon. Like, freaking get me out. Like, do whatever you can. Just get me out of here, because I think I'm going to die. So, because it just feels like he's ticking off the wrong people, and that's going to lead to his death. So we have this character that sneaks across the wall to go on and meet up with Dorota, who is trying to save these people. and like try to like sneak them out, which is great. So we have Dorota's husband, because we find out that this girl had gotten married and that she's going to have a child by Christmas. And so Varishal is like, oh my god, like I just missed my opportunity with this woman just because of what's going on. Like this is just the worst, just the worst. Because Varishla was going on and doing some work, and he like sees her again with some man, and he like his heart just like you could probably just tell the character's heart just sinks just because like God, I missed my chance. So we have this character that is to go on and get this apartment, and he gets his own room, and like he doesn't have a job or anything, he just is in hiding, so he's just in this apartment. And it's like, hey man, just make the best out of the food that you can, that when we keep delivering you, like just make the best out of it. So all of a sudden, like Dorota's husband is to change hands with some other guy, who all of a sudden we end up finding out that this guy has been swindling all the people in this apartment complex, like going on and saying that, hey man, food is really expensive, and like I keep trying to barter and sell things to try to be able to afford you all food, and it's getting really tough. And so Varishla goes on and gives his like watch over to this guy, because it's like, hey, food is better than time. So here you go. Hopefully you can kind of get me more food. I'd really appreciate it. So plus this guy is also like Adrian Brody's character is asking this guy. It's like, well, hey, like how long should I have this food last? Because like you haven't come for like 2 weeks, and I've just kind of been eating. I didn't know how much I should like save. So the guy's like, well, yeah, times are tough. So we have Varishla that goes on, and he is to just start to just save this food so badly that he ends up cutting this one potato that is to kind of have like it's starting to rot, and it's starting to have like kind of these little things kind of poking out of it that Varishla is just trying to pull off, and just to like, yeah, I gotta eat this. And so all of a sudden we start to see that this guy is to, I guess, be food poisoned or to start to just get sick. Dorota appears to this guy's place and is telling him like, oh my god, like I knew that this was happening. So Dorota is to tell Varishla that this guy has been swindling people and making them sick. And so all of a sudden, Dorota is to go and get this doctor in here to just kind of help with what's going on. And so this doctor is saying, it's like, well, like, this guy's liver, there's a problem with his liver and his bladder, and but like, hey, he'll live. And like, he could be worse. So we, of course, have it where it eventually gets to where, of course, Dorota and her husband are telling Varishla that eventually they're not just going after just Jews at this point. They're technically just going after everybody, like everybody that's in this area, or anybody that it seems that they may at some point be probably helping out certain people. But really, they're just going to attack everybody and just kill everybody off at this point. So all of a sudden we go on, and so Varishla goes on to have his apartment complex get attacked. And so we have certain people yelling like, hey guys, like, don't go out in the streets, like, they're going on and they're killing people. And so Varislav doesn't know what he's doing. He's just like, oh my god, like, and he can't get out of his apartment either because, yeah, his door was locked from the outside, and so he's like, oh my god, like, I can't freaking get out of here. There's even at points when, like, Adrian Brody's character is to worry about that he's gonna have to, like, jump out of his window at some points when he's in certain environments. It's freaking crazy. So Varishla goes on to have these tanks that are making their way through this place, and so these tanks are starting to bomb these places, and they're leaving this big, huge, massive hole in this guy's apartment building. And so Varishla just uses this to just freaking get out of here. He's like, I'm going to just freaking, like, I need to go. Like, this place isn't safe. And so this guy is just scrambling off to just go freaking anywhere at this point. And so this guy is like trying to like climb over walls, doing everything that he can. So we go on to continue have this character who is to eventually go on and just find this one place where he can just kind of hide out for now and just kind of find some resemblance of food. But the German military keeps on coming in and keeps on getting close to finding Vadisla here. And so we have this character that's just continuing to have to just like continue to move on, because the building of which that he was at, the German military was burning down. And so now Vadisla is going to a place that had technically already been destroyed, and is basically rubble. Like, that's just how bad things are. That this guy is having to like hunker down in buildings that he's not even like quite sure that these buildings are actually stable or not. And again, it's always the search for food. So Varishla goes on and is to find this one can that he can't open. And so we have this guy that has this can, and he can't open it, and he just is to like still realize that there might be a German force that's kind of making their way through this area. And so he's like, fuck, like, so he's just like miserable, just starving and miserable, and he's gonna die soon. He just has that feeling. And so so we go on and have this character that is to go and find this place that has this attic, that has this kind of ladder that is to just kind of leave him to this kind of hideout place where he hopes that people won't go and look for him until like it seems that things have gone quiet. And so Varishla goes out of his room and is to finally go and find these kind of these fireplace pokers and to try to open up this can. He drops the can and the juices start to fall out of it. And all of a sudden, we have Varishla that is to realize that there's a Captain Wilhelm Horsenfeld, German officer, in front of him. He's like, I am going to die. Well, it's like, hey, if you gotta go, you gotta go. So all of a sudden, this captain is talking to this man. He's like, hey, who are you? What have you been doing here? Like, have you been hiding? So Varishla goes on and tells this guy the absolute truth. He tells him, it's like, yes, I was hiding here. Yes, all I had was this little can for food, and I was a pianist. And so the captain's like, okay. So he takes him to this other room, and he tells this guy, since there's a piano in the room, play. Play this piano. So all of a sudden, we have this uh, Varishla who goes on and starts playing this piano and plays this like beautiful piece, just amazing, beautiful piece. And so the captain's just like, okay, like I'm gonna go on and like ask like, hey, where were you hiding? The attic? Okay, show me where that is. So we go on and we have this captain who does the right thing, who gives this guy food. And I'm like, oh my god, the saving grace of this guy. Um, and so we, of course, have it to where this soldier is telling this man, like, hey, here's food. Like, here, go on and take this food. Like, he gives him bread, he gives him jam. And so, like, we have this officer and Varishla, and we have Varishla who's like, I don't know how to thank you. And the guy's like, no, thank God, don't thank me. Like, I'm just a soldier. And so he's like, hey, like, what are you going to do after this war is over? And he's like, well, hey, if I'm still alive, I'm going to go on and I want to try to, like, do music at the Polish radio station and just kind of continue to play piano there. And he's like, good, like, what's your name? Because I want to, like, I hope at some point that I'm going to go and find you after all this is over and just kind of listen to you. And he's like, oh, well, that's great. So, like, this guy is starting to see some light at the end of this tunnel. So the captain is even going on realizing how cold this guy is, and he's like basically giving him the coat off of his like sleeves. And it's like, oh my god, like, why is this guy so nice? Why is this guy so nice? But it's just the right thing to do. So he gives him this coat, and so we go and we have this captain that goes on. And so once this war starts to get over, it seems like there's another military coming in to take down the German military. And so we all of a sudden have it where we have people that are coming by this section, and they're now the opposite of the German army. They're the other side of things. And all of a sudden, we have it where Varishla is to have this German coat on, and they start shooting at him. And he's like, "No, I'm Polish. I'm Polish. I'm Pol. You can look at me. I'm Polish. Like, please don't shoot me. Like, come on." And they're like, "Yeah, like he is Polish. Like, okay, we believe him." And they're like, "Why do you have a German coat on?" And he's like, "Because I was cold. Like, it was the only coat I could find." So they're like, okay, all right. So all of a sudden we go on, and so we have the captain and all of his German people who get captured and are kind of put into this one area, this one fencing area. And so all of a sudden we have these three men, and they're kind of walking by, and coincidentally one of them just so happens to be a musician. And he goes on and talks to these German men, and he's mentioning how, like, they took away his like they basically took away music from him, and they took away his instrument. And so the captain is going to this man and kind of holding on against this fence, and he's like, wait a minute, like, you're a musician, like, do you know like Schlipan or Slipan? And he's like, yeah, I think I know that guy. And he's like, well, hey, like, if you know that guy, tell him I'm here. Like, just kind of tell him I'm here. So we go on and have this musician, I think he's Lednicki, who goes on and is to meet with Władysław while he's going on and playing music on this Polish radio station. And so both of these guys know about this captain being held there, and so they're like, "Yeah, we got to rescue that guy because he really helped me out." So they go on and they try to find out where he, like, they try to go back to that same spot, and all of a sudden, that place is like the people that were there are all gone. So like, oh crap, I wanted to go, like Vladislav wanted to go on and save that guy because it's the right thing to do. And so we go on and we of course have of course them go and try to figure out if there's a way to just kind of like see if they can go on and find out some information. And so the next scene that we end up seeing, of course, is Varishla going on and playing his piano and like next to this orchestra. And so really there's just kind of like these beats and these things where it's kind of like telling you what happened with all these characters and telling you, of course, that the story was true, and that of course his character had died in like the 2000s when he was like 80 something. I'm like, well, yeah, like that guy was definitely probably going to try to like live as long as he possibly could, and eventually tell his story. But yeah, just like a really interesting piece, and there was a lot of brutal and what, like, kind of like I said, it was just a really fascinating movie. But kind of once we get further past like the um like once we kind of get past the train part, the movie does like really slow down. And so going into that, like there's probably not a whole lot of details that I went into the very like spoiler sense of this whole thing, because I kind of wanted to kind of rush through it, just kind of get it done as quickly as possible. So with that said, just go on and check out this movie if you haven't already, because maybe you might enjoy it for the like whoa kind of thing that it is. Or maybe you just kind of might just appreciate this story. Anyways, so with that said, I'm going to get out of here so I can go on and review something else for today. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, buddy.